Today's story is called Caps for Sale, a tale of a peddler, some monkeys, and their monkey business. This is told and illustrated by Esfir Slobotkina, and this was written and published a long time ago in 1940. So 1940 to 1950, 1950 to 1960, 1960 to 1970, 1970 to 1980, 1980 to 1990, 1990 to 2000, 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2020. That is 80 years ago. And so this book has some words in it, and even the setting of this story is not something you might see or hear at this time in 2020. But it is a classic story nonetheless, and I think you'll enjoy it. Caps for Sale. There are a couple of words in here that might be unfamiliar to you. In the first page alone, you'll discover the peddler, and he's the main character. And a peddler is a person who sells things walking from town to town. You'll know that a cap is an important part in the story. And when you hear about his wares, those are the things that he is selling. I hope you don't mind that my dog is joining us today by the warm fire. Once there was a peddler who sold caps. But he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First he had on his own checked cap, then a bunch of gray caps, then a bunch of brown caps, then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight so as not to upset his caps. Now, of course, he's not going to upset them by making them annoyed. He means he doesn't want them to all fall down. As he went along, he called, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!" Maybe if you've ever been to a baseball game or a football game, you might hear people selling popcorn or pretzels, and they would say the same kind of thing. One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street calling, "Caps! Caps for sale! 50 cents a cap!" But nobody wanted any caps that morning. Nobody wanted even a red cap. He began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch. "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he, and he walked out of town slowly, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. He walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," thought he, and he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk so as not to disturb the caps on his head. Then he put up his hand to feel if they were straight. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. He must have very long arms. They were all there, so he went to sleep. He slept for a long time. When he woke up, he was refreshed and rested. Do you see something different? Here's the problem. But before standing up, he felt with his hand to make sure his caps were in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him. No caps. He looked to the left of him. No caps. He looked in back of him. No caps. He looked behind the tree. No caps. Where are they? Then he looked up into the tree. And what do you think he saw? Let's find out. On every branch sat a monkey. On every monkey was a gray or a brown or a blue or a red cat. Well, that's surprising. The peddler looked at the monkeys. The monkeys looked at the peddler. He didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them. You monkeys, you, he said, shaking a finger at them. You give me back my caps. But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, tch, 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 tch. This made the peddler angry, so he shook both hands at them and said, You monkeys, you give me back my caps. But the monkeys only shook both their hands back at him and said, tch, 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 tch. Now he felt quite angry. He stamped his foot and he said, You monkeys, you better give me back my caps. But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, tch, 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 tch. And I would stamp my foot, but my dog is on it. Right, Doc? By this time, the peddler was really very, very angry. He stamped both his feet and shouted, You monkeys, you must give me back my caps. But the monkeys only stamped both their feet back at him and said, tss, 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 tss. At last, he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap, threw it on the ground, and began to walk away. And what do you think those monkeys did? But then each monkey pulled off his cap. And all the gray caps and all the brown caps and all the blue caps and all the red caps came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. And slowly, slowly he walked back to town calling, Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap. The end. Those silly monkeys. They solved the problem without even knowing it. And so did the man, that peddler. He solved his own problem.